So I'd like to go back for just a moment to the cryptocurrency issue. And you indicated before, as you start to look at the new Libra proposal, that you have been in communication with some of the other central banks and other regulators, as well as the United States regulators. Are you aware of any other cryptocurrency proposals that are out there, other than Libra, something else globally that is being developed?
I mean, not really. There are companies that are looking at internal stablecoin type ideas to use with their customers, but nothing that I'm not aware of anything that could potentially be quite so scalable so quickly as this, given the existing network that the company has.
And instead, you can use a digital asset to have global liquidity on demand. Now, we build upon a tech stack of an open source technology called XRP. XRP, originally was built by some engineers who had seen some of the flaws of Bitcoin and the challenges of scalability around Bitcoin. Where Bitcoin today, on a per transaction basis, it's rather slow and rather expensive. XRP is very, very fast, about 1,000 times faster per transaction and 1,000 times cheaper per transaction. The other dynamic, of course, of correspondent banking is some of the more quote-unquote exotic currencies, exotic corridors have been left to kind of stand on their own. And the liquidity in digital assets could be applied to actually make that much more democratized and a level playing field. Ripple's vision from the beginning really has been to apply these technologies in the same way that TCP/IP and HTTP are the technologies underpinning the Internet of Information. These blockchain technologies will be the underpinnings of an Internet of Value.
I think the United States has benefited from our currency being the world's reserve currency. If a cryptocurrency system were to become prevalent throughout the globe, would that diminish or remove the need for a reserve currency in the traditional sense?
I think things like that are possible, but we really haven't seen them. We haven't seen widespread adoption. I mean, Bitcoin is a good example. Really, almost no one uses Bitcoin for payments. They use it more as an alternative to gold, really. It's a store of value. It's a speculative store of value, like gold. So we don't have, and people, of course, have been talking about this since cryptocurrencies emerged, but we haven't seen it. But that's not to say we won't see it. And if we do see it, yes, you could see a return to an era in the United States where we had many different currencies, and in the so-called, I guess, national banking era.
Very much. We have a little bit of time for questions from the audience, so I'd like to invite you now to come up to their microphones here. And, may we ask you to identify yourself before you state your question?
Sure. My name is Jim Angel from Georgetown University. The proof of work required from Bitcoin 1.0, if you look at the current hash rate, is over 5,000 megawatts. That's the equivalent of 5 Chernobyls running 24/7. Bitcoin 1.0 is an environmental catastrophe that runs 7 transactions per second. What can be done to scale the system, not Bitcoin 1.0, but cryptos in general, to move away from this environmental catastrophe?
So I strongly disagree that it's an environmental catastrophe.
5 Chernobyls.
There's 50. Well, first of all, Chernobyl blew up and destroyed land in Eastern Europe because of radioactivity. People running normal nuclear or normal power plants that don't blow up are what we're talking about here.
Carbon dioxide pollution.
So right, CO2
Global
is an
warming.
issue.
Ryan, go ahead.
Proof of work doesn't work. Proof of work doesn't work. It's been widely.
Ryan, proof of work's been working.
Let me finish. Proof of work doesn't work.
Finish, please.
And in the early days of Bitcoin, there was a whole group of developers that broke off to create other assets, XRP being one of them, that doesn't use mining, that's cheaper from an energy perspective than Visa, and already scales to 1,500 transactions a second. A lot of these problems have already been solved. The challenge for adoption comes back to policy. The policy uncertainty around some of the assets has limited adoption, particularly here in the US. And I'm speaking from Ripple and XRP because we use that asset because it's a half a cent per payment. It's basically free. It scales and it's efficient. To 1,500 transactions a second at nearly no energy burn. So we're at a point today where there are real solutions to all of these challenges that already exist. Policy has become the challenge. And we heard on the first panel that around centralization on China, and this is going to be a hard pill for Peter to swallow. But 80% of the mining power for Bitcoin is controlled by 6 mining pools, 5 of which are in China. Today, the policy certainty in the US exists for Bitcoin and Ethereum, despite the fact those are China-controlled platforms. So activity goes to those platforms. What we need to do from a policy perspective in the US is look at the places where there are uncertainty. And one place I'm speaking directly for me here is XRP, where it looks like Bitcoin. It's decentralized, it's open source. We have 7% of the validation power on that, rather small in there. Grouping or giving clarity to those ones that are very similar to Bitcoin and Ethereum, that have the same characteristics and should be classified the same way. And then we're creating a level playing field across all the cryptos. I'm not anti-Bitcoin or anti-Ethereum by any means. I think there's a lot of great potential and breakthrough there. But we need to have a level playing field so the market can pick which ones they want to use and not be, as today they are, hindered by regulatory uncertainty.
And to be clear, I agree with Ryan that we need more regulatory clarity about more cryptocurrencies. And to my knowledge, the way XRP and its network are constructed seems to fit the bill from a decentralization standpoint.